to the Wisconsin Vegetable Garden Radio Show with your hosts, Joey and Hallie Baird.
Welcome back to the Wisconsin Vegetable Garden Radio program. I am Joey Baird, and across from me is my wife, best friend, co-host,
Hallie Baird.
Behind the WNOV 860 AM and 106.5 FM microphones. If you want to contact us, you can contact us through the Ivy Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard hotline at 414-444-5250, as well as you can tweet us using hashtag TWVG, or you can email us at TWVG at radio@gmail.com, twvgradio@gmail.com, and that's anytime you want to send us a question. It doesn't have to be when we're on the air. We want to bring in our guest this week. He is the author of a multi-award-winning and multi-translated book from all over the country.
All over the world.
All over the world. Mm-hmm. All over the country, all over the world. The Straw Bale Garden Book Complete. His name is Joel Karsten. He was a farm boy in the great state of Minnesota, and he discovered that this was a way that maybe people should figure out how to grow, and that's been 24 years ago. We want to welcome you to the program, the Wisconsin Vegetable Garden Radio program, Mr. Joel Karsten.
Hi, Joey. Hi, Holly. How are you this morning?
Doing well. We thank you for taking time out of your busy day to talk with us and our listeners about straw bale gardening.
Well, there's no place I'd rather be on this lovely Saturday morning. And on your inaugural show, I'm glad to be on.
Well, we appreciate that. Now, for many people who didn't have a farm or agricultural background, like Holly, right, and many of our listeners, what is the difference between straw and hay, and which is the preferred method in order to grow vegetables in?
Well, that's sort of a leading question. Let's start out with what's straw and what's hay. Straw is what's left over after the small grain or the cereal grain harvest. So you cut your oats or your wheat once it gets mature, or your barley, and you remove the seed heads. That becomes Wheaties and oatmeal, of course, and then you bale up the stalks. And in agriculture, usually those stalks are used for bedding material for livestock. That's what they sleep on. Hay is a little different. Hay is baled grass or baled alfalfa. So you go right out in the field and cut it. You don't remove the seeds. You want the seeds included because that's nutrients for your livestock. So we consider hay to be fodder, where straw is bedding material. They'll chew on a little bit of straw, but most livestock doesn't derive much nutritional value from straw because there's not a lot left in it in terms of seeds. So they eat the hay, they sleep on the straw. Hay is green, straw is gold or yellow colored. Hay is a little heavier, straw is a little lighter. Hay is, in our part of the world, in your part of the world, hay is a little more expensive. Straw is a little less expensive. Now, over the years, the reason I started using straw is because it was less expensive. But certainly hay will work for this process. It's not exclusive just to straw. I call it the Straw Bale Gardens method because that's sort of what it was when it started out. But we use this method on either straw or hay or other substrates as well. It doesn't have to be just straw or just hay. I have people in other parts of the world that use what is their local organic material, whatever they have an excess of. For instance, in Dominican Republic, they use sugarcane stalks, which are squeezed through the rum making process. They get all the juice out, and then what remains are these sort of shredded stalks. And they bale those up real tight, and they make vegetable gardens in those. So they use that as a substrate. But, it can really be pretty much anything. As long as it's organic material, that's going to decompose. So anything you would normally put into a compost pile, you could use to make your own bale, to make a straw bale garden, using the Straw Bale Gardens method on a bale of whatever material that might be. So hopefully that clears it up.
Okay. Now, where can somebody find a straw bale?
Well, any farmers, that's always a good place to start. I always tell people, if you just know one farmer, that's all you have to know, because all the farmers know all the other farmers. Just like if you ask a teacher, they know all the other teachers, and the nurses know the other nurses. Usually the farmers know most of the other farmers. And they'll steer you in the right direction. They know from driving around who grew wheat or who grew oats last year, and whoever grew oats or wheat is going to have a barn filled with some straw. So that's a good place to start. If you're going to buy retail, you can go to a garden center. Support your local independent garden center. Buy from them. Alternatives, you could use Craigslist. Believe it or not, people have found that's selling and buying straw bales on Craigslist is a great resource. We also have a website that I started called strawbalemarket.com, and that's a great place if you're a farmer and you want to sell bales. I have a number of farmers from around Wisconsin that have ads on there to offer their bales for sale, and it's just a free website, so there's no cost to put your ad on there. There's no cost to use the website to find a supplier of straw. We just, as part of my service to the country, to the world, actually, it's a worldwide database. I just built that website, and then I just do real minor support to that website because it pretty much runs itself. People create their own ads, and after a period of time, of course, the ads expire. But so it's a good resource as well. You know, and sometimes when you become a straw bale gardener, Holly, as you drive around, you're going to find straw bales. You know, you just kind of run across them. At Christmas time, you'll see the church up the street that uses straw bales for a nativity scene outside. And, you know, come February or so, those straw bales are looking pretty ragged. You'd be surprised if you knock on the door and ask them, hey, what are you doing with those bales? They'll say, oh, geez, we were going to pay somebody to come and take them away. Why don't you go ahead and take them? That's fine. We're not even going to charge you for them. So we don't care if the bales have been outside. You know, if somebody used them for insulation around their house or whatever, or over their drain field or their well cover or whatever. Sometimes people cover that with bales of straw or old bales of hay. Those are just fine for us. Those will work just fine.
Now, the advantage to growing in straw bales is that you can place them pretty much anywhere, even in places in which a traditional, well, they're kind of like a container, aren't they, Joel?
Right. Yeah, that's what I tell people, Joey. Think about the bale as a container garden. You know, the outside of the bale, over a period of time, when you get sunshine and you get the wind that blows on that bale, the outside dries out very quickly. So even when that bale gets wet, when you water it or when it gets rained on, the outside layer dries out quickly. And over a long period of time, over the summer, that outside layer sort of forms a crust because it decomposes much more slowly. The inside of the bale stays nice and wet and begins the process of decomposition very quickly. Now, it would do that all on its own. If we just walked away and left it, it would decompose on its own. But with a straw bale garden, we're going to speed that process. We're going to encourage that decomposition. And we do that, of course, by growing bacteria inside the bale. And that's part of what we do the conditioning process for on the bale, is to feed that bacteria. And then inside the bale, it becomes soil. That's what I try to explain to people. The big misnomer about straw bale gardening is everybody thinks you're growing vegetables in straw, and you're really not. You're growing vegetables in very recently decomposed straw, which is very different than what the straw was when it started out. It really becomes early stage soil or compost inside that bale, and that's where the big advantages begin of the straw bale gardening method.
So there's a lot of things you can grow in the straw bales. What I know it's a lot easier to ask, what can you not grow in a straw bale?
Or what should you not grow in a straw bale?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. You know, if we're talking specifically about our area here in Wisconsin, Minnesota, I really don't recommend people grow sweet corn. You know, you're going to get about 3 or 4 stalks of corn because the roots on corn, if you've ever noticed, are huge. And it takes, you know, it sucks up lots of nutrient value out of that bale and limits what else you could plant. You know, and if you got, say you've got 5 stalks of corn and each one gave you, you know, 1.5 years, you'd get 7-8 years of corn. It's just not efficient. You know, if you're going to pay, you know, any amount of money at all for that bale, it's not very efficient. So I don't recommend corn. And I also don't recommend planting things that are perennial roots like asparagus and rhubarb, things that come back year after year from the same rootstock. Remember, in 3 years, that bale will be unrecognizable in your garden. It will be completely decomposed. It will have become a little lump of soil, and that's about it. And therefore, your asparagus or rhubarb is going to be planted up on top of a hump in your garden, and you don't want that. You know, you want it to be nice and level. So if you're going to do something like asparagus in a straw bale garden, you could start it in the bale, but I would encourage you to dig about 1/3 of the bale into the ground, make a little trench, put it down in there, so that when it decomposes completely, that asparagus will be level with the ground. And that way, when you water it, the water won't all run off of the hump And you need to wait 3 years before you can start harvesting asparagus or harvesting rhubarb, because they need to establish roots for 3 years before you should really ever start harvesting any of the production. So for those types of crops, you could grow it, but it's probably not something that you're going to harvest out of the bale, and it's not something that I recommend. Other than that, almost everything does well. I've noticed that rosemary doesn't seem to thrive in a straw bale garden. It will persist, but it doesn't love that environment. The other thing that I haven't had extreme success with is onions. I haven't gotten great performance from onions. And other crops will be, sort of, some years you can't beat the production, and then the next year your production's about the same as it would be in a typical soil garden. It doesn't give you the extraordinary extra amount of production like we're used to with straw bale gardening. And one of the reasons that happens is because those bales get warm inside, and that vegetables really love that.
Now, you've touched on it just briefly here. For people who are listening to the program who have never heard about growing in a straw bale before, what are some of the reasons why you would encourage people to grow it this way versus a traditional garden method?
Well, I'll tell you the number one reason I get from people as feedback why they love straw bale gardening, without me leading them to this conclusion, they all come back and tell me, oh my goodness, I went all summer and I had a vegetable garden and I didn't pull a single weed out of my whole garden. It really can be a completely weed-free way to produce vegetables. And for most vegetable gardeners that I know that are traditional soil gardeners, that's the worst part of the vegetable gardening process, is you got to be very vigilant about keeping your garden weed-free. And for anybody who's never had a vegetable garden that might be out there listening, if you just go out and take a rototiller and you till up your sod and, prepare your soil, and then you plant the row of peas or beans, you're going to stand back, and about a week later, you're going to see this green carpeting coming up everywhere in your garden. Along with your beans or peas, up is going to come a whole bunch of grass and weeds and other things, because your topsoil, no matter where you are on planet Earth, your topsoil has weed seeds in it. They blow in the wind. They come in with animal manure or animal droppings in your area that are undigested seeds, and that's Mother Nature's way of allowing plants, weeds, to spread themselves, to reproduce, as it goes through the digestive tract of animals or livestock or whatever, and then, of course, we use that for fertilizer, and it spreads it everywhere. Or you see your neighbor's dandelions, that little white cloud that comes off of their front yard. That white cloud is all full of dandelion seeds, and they're heading to your garden to end up in the topsoil. So, you're going to constantly fight reoccurring every year all these weed seeds. Even if you go out and pull every single weed in your garden and you don't have a single weed all summer, which I know that's the way your garden looks, Holly, I'm sure, and Joey. Even if you do that, next year you're still going to get weeds that will come back. Where, remember, with the straw bale, we're starting with stalks of wheat, not seeds, but hopefully the seeds have been removed and you just have stalks left. So as they decompose, they become new soil inside the bale, but there are no weed seeds in there. If there are any seeds left from the wheat harvest or the oat harvest, and they're in the interior of the bale, it's highly likely that they'll be digested by the bacteria during this conditioning process, and they won't sprout anyway. They'll be heat treated, because these bales get really hot as they begin to decompose, and that sterilizes those seeds. Now, you might get a couple sprouts on the outside edges of the bale, and that kind of looks like you got a little peach fuzz growing out of the top of your bale. If that happens, I tell people, just grab your bottle of vinegar and squirt those sprouts with a little bit of vinegar, and it gets rid of them, and then you're done. Essentially, you don't have another weed to pull all summer. So that's the biggest advantage. Above all is the fact that it's weed-free. Now, there are some obvious things. You can look at a bale and you can see it's raised up off the ground. So anybody who has any kind of physical limitation that can't easily get down to the ground, this is a great way to have a raised height garden without the expense and the commitment level of a traditional raised bed garden. If you have terrible soil and you can't produce anything in the soil you have, this is a great alternative. We have tons of people in Arkansas that do this because they all live on granite down there. and they can't grow gardens because they don't have any topsoil to speak of. So this is a great way for them to do it. If you live and you only have concrete around you or asphalt, you can do this on concrete or asphalt, or you can do this on your rooftop. I have a lot of Europeans, particularly in the Netherlands and Germany and France, that are gardeners on their rooftop, and they do straw bale gardens because it's very convenient. Bales are lightweight to carry up on the roof compared to 40-pound straw bale compared to 500 pounds of soil. If you took the same volume of soil and tried to carry it up there, is a really big difference for your back and for the building itself. So, if you got a lot of bales up there, it translate that to soil, you'd have a heavy roof. So, there are many other advantages also that we can get into talking about. But for northern gardeners like us, probably one of the other biggest ones is that the bales get warm as they decompose, and the roots of the plants love that early in the season, especially.
That's great. Now, before we let you go, let us know where we can find your book, the best way to purchase it.
Well, you can go to your website. You can buy it on your website, WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. And I know you guys sell the book. You guys are also instructors for straw bale gardening. So if anybody over there is looking for somebody to come and give a seminar or teach a class or something, they can reach out to you guys, and you'll do it. But if they want to buy it specifically from me, they can come to my website, which is strawbalegardens.com. They can always find it there. And if you just Google straw bale gardening, you'll find me. I'm pretty much everywhere online. So, everything eventually leads back to me, since I'm the one who sort of pioneered this method. Lots of other people talk about their straw bale gardening methods that they use, but most of them all derived originally from what I originally did. So, it's easy to find. Any bookstore carries it. You can buy it online, lots of places. So, but if you want an autographed copy, come to your website or my website and buy it there.
And we will have those books available when we talk at Brookfield this Thursday at 7 o'clock here in Milwaukee. Joel, it's been a great opportunity to visit with you and for you to share the information about a unique way of growing a garden, not using traditional methods.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I just want to say also that I think you guys are doing a great thing for vegetable gardening in general, and especially for, Wisconsin people and Minnesota people. For those of you out there in your audience who don't know it, Holly and Joey are doing just an amazing job of teaching people about vegetable gardening. Really, some of the content you guys produce is amazing stuff, and you do just a super job. So,
well, thank you very much. We appreciate that.
You bet. Have a great day. Thanks so much, you guys.
You too.
And we'll be right back after this with. If you're in the Milwaukee or surrounding areas, just tune your radio to 860 AM or FM 106.5. You can also find links on our Facebook pages, The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener and Home Canning. Our website, thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com, click on the radio tab at the top of the page, then click on the Listen Live button, and you'll have immediately access to our live program. Mobile devices work very well also. Go to your app store and download for free the TuneIn app or the Simple Radio app. Then search WNOV 860, save it to your favorites, and you can have access to our radio show live wherever you're at in the world. Our radio program will also have podcast replay under the radio tab several days following the live broadcast. You can find all of these links in the show notes below. Our show airs 9 to 10 a.m. Central Standard Time every Saturday, March through the end of October. And we want to thank our sponsors because without them, this would not be anywhere possible. You can find all of their links under the radio tab on our website at thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.